All right, good evening. This is the regular meeting of the Board of Commissioners, St. Charles Parish Housing Authority. Today is Tuesday, January 28th, 2025. Time is now 6 p.m. I call the meeting to order. Will you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, our first agenda item this evening is the review and approval of the agenda. Any board discussion on that? All right, we have a motion. Mr. Bailey.
Mr. Chair, motion to approve the agenda as presented.
All right. Motion to approve the agenda as presented by Commissioner Bailey, seconded by Commissioner Woods. Please cast your votes. All right, that passes. Great. Next agenda item is a review and approval of the board meeting minutes from December 17th, 2024. Any discussion or motions from the board? Ms. Diggs.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes from December 17th, 2024.
Ms. Diggs has moved to approve the minutes from December 17th, 2024. We have a second by Commissioner Bailey. Please cast your votes. That passes. This time we open for public comments. Seeing no one present, public comments is closed. Review and acceptance of financial reporting. Board discussion. Mr. Woods?
Yes, maybe just a couple of cleanup or clerical errors. On page 10 of our packet, which starts the actual financial reports for low rent, just at the title or the name of our agency is incorrect in there.
Okay.
And that appears on page 51 and 52, which I think is the title page for the section 8 also.
All right, Mr. Woods has made reference to the naming of St. Charles Parish Housing Authority is misprinted on a few pages of the financial documents as St. Charles Place. So in any reference to St. Charles Place should be changed to St. Charles Parish. Any additional comments? Commissioner Bailey.
So I'm seeing on, this is in the financial report for low rent, we have a pretty large balance of outstanding, let's say maybe some outstanding payments.
Which page are you referring to?
It'll be page 11.
And you'll
So I see
$87,000.
Yeah, so I'm just seeing like what. There's quite a few of them. Like, do you have an idea of like, what are these payments for or from or owed to us from?
I can get some information on that from the fee accountant. The total deposits, I guess, go back to looks like March of 2020. Some, if not all, of the information listed here, I think, are tied to checks that either have not cleared or could not be found at the time of the report being completed.
Okay.
So I need to research that.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bailey and Mr. Jackson.
Another question.
Mr. Woods.
Generally. These are financials from, of course, the September 24 Which leads me to, and I may have asked this before, when is gonna be that we have more current information in front of us?
So I know Yolanda, myself, and the fee accountant were working on December last week, getting information that they needed. I think that one of the few remaining items was the payroll report that we needed to get to them. But hopefully, I think I projected by February we would be caught up. I'm hoping to still be caught up by February to have our January report by the February meeting. But if anything changes, I will definitely let you know. But we are working in earnest to get all of that information compiled and prepared for our next meeting.
Okay, can we also think included in that, my next question, I'm gonna ask you what our MENAR was, but we can't really, I guess, know that until we're more current.
So for fiscal year 23-24, we would need to wait for the, even though we submitted the FDS unaudited statements, we have not gotten that approved. I don't think, from what Paul was explaining to me with 76, they haven't been doing approvals as quickly as they had done in the past, HUD specifically. So I don't know what that would be for last year. What our projected MENAR was all of the points that we could expect based on the budget that we submitted to HUD.
Okay.
Did Mr. Rogers happen to give you a timeline of when he thought that would take place?
He expected it to be either approved, rejected, or questions to be asked within a month of the submission, and that has not happened. So I'll follow back up with him to see.
All right, thank you. Mr. Woods, you had another question?
No.
All right, any further discussion or questions regarding financial reporting? All right. Do we have
Sorry.
Mr. Woods?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we accept the financial reporting with the stated corrections.
All right, Mr. Woods has moved to accept financial reporting with the stated corrections, and that is seconded by Commissioner Bailey. Please cast your votes. All right, that passes. Great. Mr. Jackson.
All right, good afternoon, commissioners. Thank you for being here in attendance today. There was a couple of things that I wanted to make note of as it relates to the financials before we move on into the meat of the reports. Just wanted your attention turned to page 100. We have, which is our ELOCS drawdown statement. We have dramatically increased our vouchering. During our last board meeting, I shared with you that we had an available balance of $2,128,876.65 to be drawn down from HUD. And that was over a number of not only capital fund project cycles, but also operating fund project grant cycles. And as of January the 24th, 2025, our available balance to voucher is $1,232,621.63, which shows that we've drawn down and received disbursements from HUD in total over the last month of $895,655.02. And I want to thank Yolanda for assisting in not only helping to get the financial statements prepared with 76 strategies, but also for assisting with the ramp up in vouchering. And HUD has noticed the increase in that and appreciates that activity has picked up considerably. We're going to be, of course, in alignment with all federal regulations and guidelines, looking to zero out a number of our past grants by vouchering all that we can from those funding sources. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone was aware of that. We hope everyone fared well after the once-in-a-lifetime, we hope, blizzard that affected our region on last week. And during the event, our staff maintained its readiness and responsiveness for our low-rent and HCV families. Thankfully, we did not experience any catastrophic failures in our infrastructure, and we did have 2 responses to our emergency phone to address wall furnace issues that were addressed promptly, while also adhering to local advisories and general safety best practices. We do want to let the board know that when possible, thankfully, we did have the capability to remote in. So we did have a number of meetings, a number of operations and tasks that did get completed on last week, despite the weather. So I want to thank the staff for their effort in that regard, and also for you and your support in our activities. And turn your attention to page 101. Yes, sure.
Question?
Yes, sir.
And me, and just trying to understand this conversion that we're transferring to. Can some or all or some percentage of cap funds or some of these grants be used to satisfy some of our conversion financial?
Yes, they can be. So what we're vouchering for right now, especially with those grants that are mainly 23 and above, and I'm speaking to fiscal year 23 and above, are for expenses that we've already incurred as an agency. And I'm glad you asked that question, because part of what we're attempting to do with one of the resolutions tonight is to set up a separate bank account to ensure that any funds drawn down of the capital fund nature can be utilized for that and for any other capital projects as needed going forward. But definitely the intention is to have some, and not only what you see listed here, but any future capital fund grant allocations that we're able to receive to be utilized to support the conversion. When I came on in July, we did submit a capital fund grant request for 24 as if we would be transitioning out of the management of, or the direct oversight and management of capital fund dollars due to the nature of the conversion. At the same time, with the delay, we will be requesting what we would normally request in terms of the capital fund allocation for any activity. So it's interesting, we were anticipating to have less money, but now, unfortunately, and I guess at the same time, fortunately, because of the delay, we'll be able to submit a request for additional funding.
All with the hope of trying to fill in, we'll call that gap that the developer says we're trying to fill in.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
All right. Thank you
Yes.
so much, sir.
Yes, sir. Any other questions regarding ELOCs? Okay. So we'd like to turn your attention to the low rent report, which is on page 101. We saw over the course of December 2024 total rent collection in the amount of $9,755. We have a total number of 45 units leased up, as well as 70 units between all three of our properties on mod status. Of the 14 vacancies that we currently have, 6 are listed as move-in ready. We've already placed a number of families in, so that number of occupied units will go up. We have also listed on page 102 the actual mod units. Because at the end of the month of December, on page 103, we were in the final process of going through our purge process. There were no waiting list letters sent out. There have been a number of waiting list letters sent out since. And we did have 18 maintenance work orders for the month of December that were completed in a timely manner. We also wanted to provide the board with the update for the repair plan for vacant units. One of those conversations that we had with HUD a week before, 2 weeks ago rather, included the occupancy rate, and we did provide this to them as well, considering the units that were not on mod status but that were in the process of becoming make ready. And I also wanted to mention that we would like to let the board know that there was an unintended consequence due to the withdrawal of the SVC application. So I'm not, because this of course preceded me, but When we submitted or were in the process of preparing the SVC application, the mod units or the units that we indicate that are on mod status were placed into mod status. Unfortunately, when the application was withdrawn, HUD actually transitioned the status of those units to vacant, which is not good for us. But we have been in contact with HUD, and we have been trying to work at getting a solution in place. We do believe we have one. That was one of the meetings that I had last week during the snowstorm and the aftermath, was getting a solution in place to where the field office will be working with the the recap office, who manages the RAD process, to allow us to change those units back to mod status in PIC.
In reading that RAD, one of the things that they don't deal with vacant units.
They have to be vacant for some time, but because of the situation that we had with the units even prior to with Ida and some of the property issues prior to that, they're still fairly confident that those would be that everything that would be eligible will be eligible.
I mean, as long as they're in mod, they're not really considered vacant, right?
If they're in mod, they're not considered vacant, correct.
Yeah.
But if they're vacant and we don't occupy them, it affects our occupancy rate.
Yeah.
Which again, when I say unintended consequence, this was literally something that, we were given instruction to withdraw and request. We did that, and this occurred. So understanding that this was based on guidance that we received, that's why HUD is providing as much support as they can to get us in a position to put those units back on mod status pending the current application process. Now, what they did inform us about during that meeting was when we ask for we have to give a specific time frame that we want the units in mod, because we can only do it once. So I know we're hoping it's going to be 18 months or less. If it's anything longer than that, we're going to try to, based on some of the conversations we're going to have with Standard and with Jaime at the next conversation, who's our HUD technical advisor, we're going to ask for as much time as we possibly can get, just in case something happens that affects us in a negative light.
So this conversation already is in the mix.
Yes.
With all the players.
Yes, absolutely. So would like to turn your attention next to the HCV report that is on page 106. And as it relates to HCV general activity, we've had, through the month of December, we had 4 port outs searching, 2 from St. John, 1 from Hanover, 1 from Jefferson Parish, 5 port outs leased up. St. John, 2 in St. John, 1 in Kenner, 1 in Ouachita, and 1 in Texas, and 14 port-ins leased up in Billing, 1 port-in searching for housing. We did have 2 EOPs to occur last month. Overall, and I'm going to kind of talk about the difference that you see here in numbers 6 and 7. We made HAP payments in the total amount of $260,174.16, and in the month of December we had income of $174,720.16, which is from admin income as well as HAP income from HUD. We had 3 vouchers in-house searching, and we added 5 new landlords to our landlord list. Overall, in total, we had 251 vouchers leased up with 7 searching. So just as a point of information, the reason why there was such a difference in HAP income versus HAP outgoing payments is because of the shortfall. We experienced our shortfall in December and part of November. We did receive funding from HUD to cover a part of the shortfall, but the shortfall is being, we experienced it nonetheless. And again, this is something that is happening all across the country because of, again, the increased rents versus what the subsidy that HUD is providing for housing assistance payments will cover.
Who's making that? Oh, is that a?
So we have reserves, thankfully, but there may be a future adjustment, because we did, in our VMS closeout, we did communicate the number that we actually needed to be in, I guess, the black or neutral financial status. And there may be another adjustment and or additional shortfall funding coming this year. Hopefully we'll be out of shortfall, because up until December, to be honest, the net position that we were in was in the black. So we didn't see it. And like I said, hopefully with the VMS submission for the end of the year, HUD will see it in black and white that we needed the money for the vouchers that we let and that we had on the street for the months of November and December. And I would like to add too, again, with the shortfall, we are prevented from leasing new vouchers or paying for any new port-ins. And we are, as a point of practice and to address the financial impact of the shortfall as per HUD guidance, we are, until we're removed from shortfall status, vouchers that are EOP'd will not be reissued. One of the parts of the shortfall guidance is that we be as fiscally prudent with the voucher resources that we have. So we may benefit from we average about 1 or 2 EOPs a month. And for Commissioner Diggs, an EOP means end of program for a participant. So either they give up the voucher voluntarily, or there's something that they do against program guidelines, the rules and regulations that we have to proceed with end of participation. But we are awaiting a follow-up meeting with our shortfall point of contact. Again, the December VMS submission was the final VMS submission, and that occurred last week. So we'll hopefully be getting an update from Vicki Pauley, who's our shortfall point of contact as it relates to when the shortfall status could end. And we will definitely keep the board aware of those conversations. Does anybody have any questions about HCV before I move on to a couple other items?
All our port-ins are current?
Yes. Yes. Any other questions?
That's it.
Okay. So as a follow-up on a long-standing agenda item that does not appear this month, we did submit a status report to HUD as required by a recovery agreement before December the 26th. And that report reflected the timely financial reporting submission as per one of the requirements, as well as an update on the conversion. We did have a conversation with Andy, as well as Levitra, at a point where we discussed a revision to the recovery agreement due to the fact that we're no longer pursuing SVC. So hopefully that will be coming fairly soon. That we do have the ability to amend the recovery agreement. And I did have a conversation with Andy about our status, not only on the CMAP side, but also the FOS side. And she did not indicate when we would see a change in our status, but she did indicate that because of the increased property scores, that we may potentially see a shift in status. So hopefully we'll see what happens with that. But it was a little, yeah, well, we could, and maybe you won't, but we'll see, So we'll have to wait on that. But just wanted to make sure that the board was aware of that. The recovery agreement update that we did send. In addition, we're continuing a steady move towards our RAD Section 18 application. In the latest meeting with our HUD Technical Assistance Advisor, we did receive our checklist. Also, RAD rents were increased on December the 26th, 2024 to 9010 from 8020. So that will definitely help when it comes to our bottom line projection to make the conversion a reality. We also provided standard with our September 2024 financial report. That is what they needed to, in earnest, begin their cost estimates for the project. We are now set up on the RAD resource desk. We're waiting for SACTA's transfer of our SVC application. That was a part of the discussion that we had with HUD last week, because they indicated, SACTA indicated that they would be transferring our application that could be, the parts of the SVC application that could be transferred over to the RAD application. That has not happened yet. So we're waiting on that to be complete in the resource desk, because that's where we would be getting all of our information.
Just unclear, so things like environmental studies or whatever.
That should transfer over. That when yeah, correct. And with our plan revision that we're going to discuss tonight as well, and upcoming resident meetings, we did have that as a part of that checklist. With those dates and times pending, we're continuing to move forward on our application for the RAD Section 18 blend. We do have 6 resolutions for consideration tonight, as well as an executive session. The first is a resolution allowing for the creation of a capital fund project account with our local banking institution to ensure proper fund separation for the various capital activities of the agency. The second resolution deals with a revision to the check writing policy to explicitly allow for electronic payments to vendors. This is necessary to ensure that our policy is clear on an electronic payment process and to ensure that we were able to be prompt with vendor payments. The third resolution allows for the creation of a PTO policy for executive directors. In practice, there were guidelines established for PTO for executive directors, but we were unable to locate a specific policy that addresses those practices. And this policy would allow for an established time tracking and PTO policy for current, former, and future executive directors of this agency. The fourth resolution is for the creation of an audit engagement policy to ensure ethical standards and best practices from the beginning to the conclusion of our SCPHA audit processes with independent auditors. As an FYI, we are in the process of gathering requested information for the 23-24 fiscal year for Mr. Estes per his audit engagement letter, and we will keep the board updated on that process as well. The fifth resolution is a correction needed in our PHA plan process for the RAD Section 18. For the inclusion of the RAD Section 18 process language, we previously received guidance to make our conversion language more general to ensure that we would not have to revise our plan if something were to prevent us from proceeding with the RAD Section 18 repositioning strategy. In recent, when I say recent, like last 2 weeks consultation with our technical support specialist, he did indicate that we have to be very specific. So this resolution allows for the re-advertisement of the revision that will include this very specific language. And the last resolution before you tonight is to review and accept the bid for the purchase of our 2 2013 work trucks. In the same light, I would like to let the board know that since our last meeting, our fleet has been updated. Thanks to the support of Jefferson Parish and being able to use a cooperative purchase agreement, our 2013 work trucks that hung around as long as they could gave way. One of them did give way a few weeks ago, but we were able to secure 2024 work trucks in the last couple of weeks. So I want to thank our Board of Commissioners, St. Charles Parish and Jefferson Parish Purchasing Departments, and Jefferson Parish's Fleet Management Department for allowing us to make that purchase happen. And as an update to the Office of Management and Budget Directive that occurred today. I'm sorry, does anybody have any questions on those 2 things before I continue on?
So we do have new trucks?
We have 2 new work trucks, yes.
That we're rolling around in.
That we're using. Yes.
Are we putting any signage on them or anything?
Yes, we're putting signage on them as well as the tailgate lifts. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And we're going to do one of the trucks, we're going to put one of the trucks on, put signage rather on one of the trucks first until we get the third vehicle for inspections, yes. So just as an FYI.
Are we doing, remember a while back we authorized to redo the car. Are we still thinking about doing that or something?
The third vehicle?
The third vehicle,
Yes.
is that the car that
Yes.
we're thinking about?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, okay.
Yes.
All right.
So transitioning to, I have 2 more pieces. I apologize of the report. I apologize for the length. But as an update to the Office of Management and Budget Directive that occurred today regarding the pause of federal funding, by the White House. We did receive the following from HUD at 4:30 p.m. today. It was an email, Dear Executive Directors, on January 27th, the U.S. Office of Management and Budget, on behalf of President Trump, instructed all federal departments to temporarily pause all activities to the obligation and disbursement of federal financial assistance. HUD is currently reviewing each grant program in accordance with the guidance provided to agencies. The tenant-based rental assistance program, the HCV program, is no longer subject to the pause. Public housing agencies will receive the February tenant-based rental assistance payments as scheduled. All other grants to PHAs are paused until further notice, and users do not have access to locks. I will let you know when I receive more information as HUD complies with this order. Dominic Bloom, General Deputy Assistant Secretary. So
The Housing Choice Voucher Program, are they saying that the payments are paused, or
they're not paused.
They're not paused. So
Correct.
the payments are still going to come through.
Correct.
Are they still going to allow issues of more vouchers, or that's
They did not say
they're not
either
saying,
way.
But the payments are still coming through.
Correct. So considering the timing, the first being in a couple of days, we will be able to make February payments to our landlords, the HAP assistance.
Federal payments to the landlord, and then the voucher recipients that have vouchers in hand, they're still
Yes,
still
they're,
okay.
yes, they're still okay. Yes. Considering that, to your point, while we do have clarity on some things, a lot is unclear at the same time, and what we do know is we'll have more information as that review occurs within the days to come. And I think the White House did clarify something today as it relates to direct assistance programs. So some of the programs that our constituency benefits from, SNAP, Social Security, Medicaid, Head Start, and other direct assistance would be unaffected by the pause. And lastly, the parish president has appointed a new resident commissioner. Mr. Gilbert Joseph will be sworn in next week. He is a resident of our Booty property, Booty community, and has been engaged with our Reform Resident Advisory Board since I came in July of last year, and we do look forward to working with Commissioner Joseph to continue improving agency operations and the quality of life for all of our residents. And commissioners, that does conclude this report. Please let me know if you have any questions.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Is there any questions from commissioners?
Are you going to discuss any more with our red Section 8 blend process? Something behind closed doors, or you have any?
No, I wasn't intending on. Is there any?
Just a particular question. Where are we in that process?
So,
If there are a couple of steps that HUD says, where are we in that process?
so right now we are in the beginning stages of the beginning of the RAD application. So getting set up on the resource desk, which we did not have access to until recently, is really the first step in the actual creation of the application.
That's something a commission might be engaged in. I don't know if you saw. I was just had plenty of time to read this week.
Yeah.
And I did make an application to get on that RAD
You
resource
did?
desk.
I didn't receive that.
It said that it would send an email to you for approval.
I did not get that, but I will check.
Okay.
I will check, because usually, to give Standard as an agency representative, I had to go in and add Richard.
Yeah. Okay.
So, but I'll definitely check on that.
Okay. Talk with you more one-on-one about the process and where we are.
Sure. And I'll have the checklist sent to the commissioners as well.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Woods. Mr. Jackson, anything further? All right. We have several resolutions before us this evening, as Mr. Jackson alluded to. First resolution before us this evening is 2501-2801, approving and adopting the opening of a capital fund projects bank account. We do have memorandum in that regard. The purpose of the memorandum is to provide an overview of the proposed resolution approving and authorizing the opening of a capital fund projects bank account. The authority is a public housing agency established pursuant to Louisiana law, whose mission is to promote adequate and affordable housing, economic opportunity, and a living environment free from discrimination. Committed to the authority's mission, the staff is continuously working to improve services, strengthen operations, and implement sound policy. The authority and its Board of Commissioners must from time to time authorize the opening, closing, or transfer of bank accounts with financial institutions to transact business separate and apart from other programmatic or cost centers to ensure segregation and proper allocation of funds. And the Board of Commissioners must designate specific representatives as authorized signatory for the bank accounts and lines of credit, including but not limited to executing any banking instrument required to facilitate business on behalf of the authority. This resolution would allow the creation of a capital fund project bank account and for the confirmation of the current bank signatory form with bank accounts held at the First National Bank USA to reflect current officers and staff to be considered authorized representatives, to allow for the use of the execution of financial instruments in accordance with agency financial policies, including but not limited to checks, credit cards, ACH deposits and payments, etc., for any SCPHA capital fund eligible related expenses. Approval and adoption of this resolution by the Board of Commissioners is required for the authority to effectuate and transact business in its day-to-day operations. Recommendation: staff recommends board approval and adoption of this proposed resolution, providing for the creation of a capital fund projects bank account. And on January 15th, 2025, at the St. Charles Parish Housing Authority Finance and Audit Committee meeting, the committee has also advised that the full board consider the resolution for passage at the next regular meeting of the St. Charles Parish Housing Authority Board of Commissioners. In regard to Resolution 2501-2801, is there any board discussion or motions?
Quick question. So this bank is a different financial institution from the one we currently have, or it's the same one?
It is the same one.
It's the same one?
Mhm.
I know we had a conversation at one point about funds being, like how much the FDIC will cover funds. Is that per bank account?
It's per bank account. Yes, yes.
Sure, I don't put all money in one place and then it doesn't cover it,
Right.
Okay.
All right.
Also,
Mr. Woods.
So, I know the reasoning. Will you tell us a couple of benefits of doing, in my mind, as just a board person, just for tracking purposes? So give us a benefit or two of why we would do this.
So we are subject to ensuring, of course, that the agency has adequate financial resources to cover operations, including capital project expenditures. So coming in July, all of our vouchers go into one account. All of our voucher reimbursements, it goes into one account. Because that's been the structure of the financial structure of the agency. Understanding that the potential for funding to be used for administration that should be used for capital project expenditures is really the main reason why we want to make sure that there is proper separation for each account type. One of the things hopefully we'll be able to transition to is the HAP payments going to the HAP account and not necessarily to low rent and vice versa. So the creation of this account is specifically to make sure that if we have any vouchers that come from the federal government for capital project reimbursements, that we're able to deposit them in this bank account. If we have any insurance proceeds or any proceeds from any sort of accident or anything like that, that we're able to put those funds directly into this account so that when we run a payroll, it won't affect the bottom line. Yeah.
It'll be a cleaner picture.
Yes, absolutely.
For the initial opening of the account, is there a minimum deposit, and where is that money coming from?
So we have, and I've been tracking this internally, we have received capital, as I indicated during my executive director's report, we have received capital fund vouchers. And there's a minimum that was disclosed to us, but it will be well over $100,000 that we'll be doing as an initial deposit into this account, just because that's what we've recently received from the vouchers.
And that 100,000 plus is already designated as capital fund?
Yes, yes, yes.
Very good.
All right, any additional questions, comments, concerns from the board? Yep. All right, Mr. Woods.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve Resolution 25-01-28-01, a resolution of the St. Charles Parish Housing Authority Board of Commissioners approving and authorizing the opening of a capital fund projects bank account.
All right, Mr. Woods has moved to approve Resolution 25-01-28-01, approving and authorizing the opening of a capital fund projects bank account. That's been seconded by Commissioner Bailey. Please cast your votes. All right, that's been approved. Resolution 25-01-28-01, a resolution of the St. Charles Parish Housing Authority Board of Commissioners approving and authorizing the opening of a capital fund projects bank account. Undersigned being duly elected Secretary of St. Charles Parish Housing Authority hereby certifies that by written consent the following resolution was adopted. Whereas St. Charles Parish Housing Authority is a public housing agency established pursuant to Louisiana law. Whereas the mission of the authority is to promote adequate and affordable housing, economic opportunity, and a suitable living environment free from discrimination. Whereas the authority from time to time authorized the opening, closing, or transfer of bank accounts with financial institutions to transact business separate and apart from all other program or cost centers to ensure segregation and proper allocation of funds. And whereas the authority wishes to open a new bank account with First National Bank USA for the use of deposits, credits, and debits of expenses associated with approved and eligible capital fund project-related expenses, and whereas the authority from time to time must designate specific authorized representatives on its financial instruments and documents, must from time to time revise and update that list of designated representatives, and whereas the following persons are hereby authorized to be added to the First National Bank USA signatory form as designated signatory for the authority on all related financial instruments: Webb J. IV, Commissioner, St. Charles Parish Housing Authority; Rodney Woods, Commissioner, St. Charles Parish Housing Authority; Delirio Bailey, Commissioner, St. Charles Parish Housing Authority; Jedediah Jackson, Executive Director, St. Charles Parish Housing Authority. Now therefore be it resolved that the proposed resolution providing for the creation of a capital fund projects bank account and the confirmation in writing and signature of financial authority to designated representatives of St. Charles Parish Housing Authority is hereby approved and adopted for implementation. Above resolution was read in full. Roll was called on adoption of same, and the vote was unanimous. One quick question. Did we need to sign this signatory tonight, or do we need to go to the bank to do that, or?
So that would be for the resolution. There may be some additional paperwork that needs to be signed, but
Okay.
they, of course.
Sign one copy here tonight, and then whatever else we need. Okay.
Yeah, that works.
Sounds
They
good.
usually ask for the corporate resolution first. So
Okay,
that's-
right.
Yeah, okay. Good deal. All right, moving right along. Resolution 25-01-28-02, approving and adopting the revision of the St. Charles Parish Housing Authority check writing policy. Do you have a memorandum? Background: the authority is a public housing agency established pursuant to Louisiana law. Mission is to promote adequate and affordable housing, economic opportunity, and a living environment free from discrimination. Committed to the authority's mission, the staff is continually working to improve services, strengthen operations, and implement sound policy. The authority and its Board of Commissioners, from time to time, as dictated by HUD federal regulations, must create and revise agency policies and procedures to ensure compliance with federal, state, and local law, as well as to look for efficiency of process. On April 24th, 2023, the Board of Commissioners adopted finance policies that govern check writing. While the current policy does not prohibit electronic check signing and/or the use of ACH to pay agency vendors upon receipt of an invoice receipt, the St. Charles Parish Housing Authority Board of Commissioners would like to ensure clarity on the matter in the check writing policy. To ensure continued efficiency of process, the St. Charles Parish Housing Authority Board of Commissioners wishes to amend the policy to include the following section. E-check ACH payment. When possible, the Executive Director may request the agency accountant or designee to begin the process of initiating an electronic check or ACH payment to pay agency vendors upon the receipt of an invoice, bill and or receipt for goods and services rendered to ACH through the following process. The agency must receive an invoice, bill, and or receipt for goods and services received by the agency, receipt of which will be verified by the Executive Director and their designee through an electronic check ACH payment authorization form. Once the form has been prepared, Executive Director will forward a physical or electronic copy of the form and all relevant backup for the review and approval by signature of 2 commissioners with agency bank signatory authority. Once the commissioners have reviewed and signed off on the electronic or physical authorization form and returned it to the Executive Director fully executed, the Executive Director will direct the agency accountant or designee to remit payment via electronic check or ACH payment to the agency vendor to ensure prompt payment of the payable. The Executive Director shall direct the accountant or their designee to file the related paperwork, including but not limited to authorization forms, backup documentation, and confirmation of payment for not less than the period prescribed for record keeping and audit purposes. Action required. Approval and adoption of this resolution by the Board of Commissioners is required for the revision of the St. Charles Parish Housing Authority check writing policy. Recommendation. Staff recommends board approval and adoption of the proposed resolution to revise the St. Charles Parish Housing Authority check writing policy. And on January 15th, 2025, at the St. Charles Parish Housing Authority Finance and Audit Committee meeting, the Finance and Audit Committee has also advised that the full board consider the resolution for passage at the next regular meeting of the St. Charles Parish Housing Authority Board of Commissioners. All right, any board discussion regarding Resolution 2501-2802?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to say I just think that this will make sense and that it'll be efficient, less time trying to get checks signed, and I'm going to think even just paying people in a timely manner. So I would certainly support this.
All right, thank you, Mr. Woods. Mr. Woods,
Second.
are you moving to?
Okay, I'm sorry. Mr. Chair, thank you. I make a motion. Here we go. I make a motion that we approve Resolution 25-01-28-02, a resolution of the St. Charles Parish Housing Authority Board of Commissioners approving and authorizing the revision of the St. Charles Parish Housing Authority check writing policy.
All right, Mr. Woods has moved to approve Resolution 2501-2802, approving and adopting revision of the check writing policy, and that is seconded by Commissioner Bailey. Please cast your votes. All right, that passes with all members voting in the affirmative that are present this evening. Resolution 2501-2802, resolution of St. Charles Parish Housing Authority Board of Commissioners approving and authorizing the revision of the St. Charles Parish Housing Authority check writing policy. Undersigned, being the duly elected Secretary of St. Charles Parish Housing Authority, hereby certifies that by written consent, following resolution was duly adopted. Whereas St. Charles Parish Housing Authority is a public housing agency established pursuant to Louisiana law, and whereas the mission of the authority is to promote adequate and affordable housing, economic opportunity, and a suitable living environment free from discrimination, and whereas the authority, as dictated by federal, state, and local laws and regulations, must revise its various policies and procedures to ensure compliance and efficiency of process, and whereas the need arises for the agency to revise its check writing policy to include and allow for electronic check and ACH as methods of payment to agency vendors for goods and services that have been rendered to the agency, and whereas The authority and its Board of Commissioners wishes to revise the check writing policy to include the following section as an addition. E-check ACH payment. When possible, Executive Director may request agency accountant or designee to begin the process of initiating an electronic check or ACH payment to pay agency vendors upon the receipt of an invoice, bill, and/or receipt for goods and services rendered to ACH through the following process. The agency must receive an invoice, bill, and/or receipt for goods and services received by the agency, receipt of which will be verified by Executive Director and their designee through an electronic check ACH payment authorization form. Once the form has been prepared, Executive Director will forward a physical or electronic copy of the form and all relevant backup for the review and approval by signature of 2 commissioners with agency bank signatory authority. Once the commissioners have reviewed and e-signed off on the electronic or physical authorization form and return it to the Executive Director fully executed, Executive Director will direct the agency accountant or designee to remit payment via electronic check or ACH payment to the agency vendor to ensure prompt payment of the payable. Executive Director shall direct the accountant or their designee to file the related paperwork, including but not limited to authorization forms, backup documentation, and confirmation of payment for not less than the period prescribed for record keeping and audit purposes. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the resolution to revise the St. Charles Parish Housing Authority check writing policy as written above is hereby adopted. The above resolution was read in full. Roll was called on adoption of same, and vote was unanimous of all members present.
It's 149.
Is it 149?
49.
Okay, all right. Sounds good. Excuse me. All right, Resolution 2501-2803, approving and adopting St. Charles Parish Housing Authority PTO policy for executive directors. Memorandum. The authority is a public housing agency established pursuant to Louisiana law, whose mission is to promote adequate and affordable housing, economic opportunity, and a living environment free from discrimination. Committed to the authority's mission, the staff is continuously working to improve services, strengthen operations, and implement sound policy. The authority and its Board of Commissioners, from time to time, as dictated by HUD federal regulations, must create and revise agency policies and procedures to ensure compliance with federal, state, and local law, as well as to look for efficiency of process. Executive directors are employed by the agency as employees responsible to the Board of Commissioners and are to provide for agency oversight. As those employed in that position are considered employees exempt from overtime, they are to be considered to be on call 24 hours a day to the agency. Compensation for the position is agreed to between the Board of Commissioners and the individual who will be employed. Historically, the agency and its Board of Commissioners has agreed to provide paid time off, annual and sick leave, to executive directors on an annual basis, and to pay out the hourly rate value of the unused annual leave of executive directors at the beginning of a new calendar year as a normal part of the payroll process, the value of which is subject to federal and state tax withholding. Despite this being a practice and a nationally accepted standard as a part of executive compensation, St. Charles Parish Housing Authority has faced scrutiny for this practice, as executive directors have not kept ongoing payroll records despite the law indicating that it was not required. Beginning in 2024, the executive director of the agency began completing an online weekly payroll record. This resolution will allow for the creation of the following policy governing St. Charles Parish Housing Authority paid time off for executive directors. St. Charles Parish Housing Authority paid time off policy for executive directors. The policy affects the current, incumbent, and past St. Charles Parish Housing Authority executive directors to ensure compliance with federal, state, and local law and regulations guiding paid time off, annual, and sick leave as part of the compensation for executive directors employed by St. Charles Parish Housing Authority. Payroll records. The executive director will complete a weekly payroll report indicating their regular hours worked and document any annual sick or holiday leave taken during the course of any given week. These payroll records will be maintained as agency records and available for review as needed by the Board of Commissioners and any entity that wishes to review them for the purposes of audit. Annual leave. On January 1st of each new calendar year or upon the hire of a new regular or interim executive director, the person employed by St. Charles Parish Housing Authority as its executive director will be provided 80 hours of annual leave to use as needed throughout the course of the year. Annual leave is a set number of paid hours or days off that an employee can use for personal reasons such as vacation or rest. It is also known as vacation leave or paid time off. Any hours of annual leave that were not used during a calendar year are allowed to be paid out to the current executive director at the beginning of the following calendar year. If the executive director resigns or is terminated from employment during a calendar year, the affected person is eligible for a payout of any unused leave up to 40 annual leave hours on the payroll check run following their separation from the agency, in addition to any separation compensation as indicated by their employment contract. Sick leave. On January 1st of each new calendar year or upon the hire of a new regular or interim executive director, the person employed by St. Charles Parish Housing Authority as its executive director will be provided 80 hours of sick leave to use as needed throughout the course of the year. Sick leave, also known as paid sick days or sick pay, is a period of paid time off from work to address health needs wherein which the executive director is unable to be called upon due to them addressing a health-related matter. It's different from paid annual leave. Any unused sick leave hours at the end of a calendar year are not eligible for payout to the employed executive director. If the executive director resigns or is terminated from employment during the calendar year, the sick leave of the affected person will reduce to 0 hours, and the affected person is not eligible for a payout of unused sick leave. Overtime and or compensatory time eligibility. Individuals employed as the executive director of St. Charles Parish Housing Authority are not eligible for overtime or compensatory time. Matters affecting past, current, and future audit monitoring. Understanding the current law governing payroll records for executive directors as exempt employees and any past St. Charles Parish Housing Authority paid time off policies for executive directors, past executive directors, and agency commissioners who received legal guidance or otherwise from employment law indicating that unused annual leave balances were to be paid out at the end of the calendar year. To address past audit findings or question costs that have occurred as it relates to St. Charles Parish Housing Authority paid time off policies for executive directors, the St. Charles Parish Housing Authority has written off any currently questioned paid time off annual leave payouts for past executive directors hired before January 1st, 2023, who are deceased. Those currently employed by the agency who are now or have been executive directors are eligible for the payout of unused annual leave upon the receipt of payroll records, receipt, electronic or in writing, indicating regular hours worked and annual leave taken during calendar year 2023 and 2024. The records will be confirmed by 2 current Board of Commissioners who have financial signatory authority. Action required. Approval and adoption of this resolution by the Board of Commissioners is required for the creation of a St. Charles Parish Housing Authority paid time off policy for executive directors. Recommendation. The staff recommends board approval and adoption of the proposed resolution for the creation of a St. Charles Parish Housing Authority paid time off policy for executive directors. On January 15th, 2025, at the St. Charles Parish Housing Authority Finance and Audit Committee meeting, the committee has also advised that the full board consider this resolution for passage at the next regular meeting of the St. Charles Parish Housing Authority Board of Commissioners. Is there any board discussion, questions, comments, or a motion from the board? Mr. Woods.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I would say, Mr. Jackson, just give us your thoughts and comments on this policy and Is this pretty much a standard thing for EDs? You know?
It is, and it's actually something, and I will let you know just generally, there will be a number of policy creations and/or revisions that will be coming before the board within the next few months to address some things that I've seen in past monitorings, as well as just some best practices that I think we should, or, you know, at the board's discretion, employ for the agency. This is a standard policy and/or process for executive compensation. Part of this, and this policy is not just dealing with generally a payout of a certain monetary amount to the executive director. This establishes the fact that executive directors going forward will need to track their time. I can't tell you how many times Mr. Estes during the last audit indicated that he wasn't concerned necessarily with what the law was as much as he was concerned with us having some sort of payroll tracking policy or time tracking policy for executive directors. So this does address that. It does set the limit on PTO for the executive director being 80 hours of annual, 80 hours of sick. It does ensure that, which again was another past audit finding, that the executive director cannot unilaterally give themselves overtime and or comp time. That is something that this does address. And it also addressed past monitoring findings about expenditures that have occurred as it relates to PTO payouts and question costs.
So when you say that on page 51, when he talks about all that stuff has been written off,
that is the past, some of the question costs that came up from past audit monitorings.
Okay.
Yes.
So everything that's, from moving forward for this resolution and legally, everything that's passed
This does clear that.
It clears up all of that.
This does clear that, yes.
No issues. Okay, very good.
Yes.
With that, Mr. Chair, I think we can support this.
Yes, ma'am.
Does the time when you call it in, is it electronic or is it Parish system that's already set up?
So we have two, actually, one timekeeping system with one software that supports that timekeeping system. We utilize ADP for payroll as well as for timekeeping and time tracking. Because of the time that we have during the day, because we don't start at 8:30 and end at 4:30, ADP for whatever reason cannot or was not able to track the half hour accurately. So what they use to do that is another software called Clock Shark. So every day when any employee clocks in, they use Clock Shark to clock in, and that feeds directly into ADP for when we're able to process the payroll. So that it's not a Parish system; it is two online softwares.
Okay. My next question, that's electronic.
Yes, ma'am.
What's the option if the electricity off or?
We got backups. So every staff member has a mobile phone.
Okay, that's
And the logins primarily happen on the mobile phone, on the cell phone, or they could sign in at the desktop as well. So there's options, and part of that software too, just as an FYI, it's geo-fenced. So when you sign in, you have to be within 2 miles of the agency.
So anticipating where my brain was going.
So yeah. So it's an efficient and effective tool that we've been using, I think since beginning of August. And ADP, by the way, they have been great partners in ensuring that all of our payroll taxes are processed. Like they handle all of the tax side of running the agency as it relates to operational payroll taxes.
When you talk about the geofence, is 2 miles, I mean, that seems like a big is it just to make up for the discrepancy of how the, I'm just wondering.
We
what
could
the
make it
dis-
as small as we want. I think sometimes it depends on where someone starts their day, is just given that allowance. But you're able to see throughout the day where the clock in is and where the person, because they have the cell phones on them at all times, where they move throughout the day. So, we could tighten it.
They're doing that through a housing authority issued phones?
Yes, yes.
So, you know where they are, and you hadn't seen any discrepancies on.
No.
Yeah.
And, I gotta give it to the staff. It's a new process. It's something that they had never done before because everything was totally paper. And they have taken to it. They communicate when there's issues. So, that's why I asked them at the beginning of the process. I said, it's change. It's gonna take a time to get used to, but let me know if you have an issue. So if for whatever reason their phone freezes up and they can't clock in, they let me know. They send me a text. They talk to me.
Yeah, the communication.
Yes, so,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Cool.
All right, any additional questions? All right, Mr. Woods.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve Resolution 25-01-28-03, a resolution of the St. Charles Parish Housing Authority Board of Commissioners approving and adopting a resolution for the creation of a St. Charles Parish Housing Authority PTO policy for executive directors.
Thank you, Mr. Woods. Mr. Woods has moved to approve Resolution 25-01-28-03, resolution of St. Charles Parish Housing Authority Board of Commissioners approving and adopting a resolution for the creation of St. Charles Parish Housing Authority paid time off policy for executive directors. That motion has been seconded by Ms. Diggs. Please cast your votes. All right, that passes unanimously by all members present. The undersigned, being the duly elected Secretary of St. Charles Parish Housing Authority, hereby certifies that by written consent, following resolution was duly adopted. Whereas the St. Charles Parish Housing Authority is a public housing agency established pursuant to Louisiana law, and whereas the mission of the authority is to promote adequate and affordable housing, economic opportunity, and suitable living environment free from discrimination, whereas the authority is dictated by federal, state, and local laws and regulations, must revise its various policies and procedures to ensure compliance and efficiency of process, and whereas the needs arise for the agency to create a policy entitled St. Charles Parish Housing Authority Paid Time Off Policy for Executive Directors, and whereas the authority and its Board of Commissioners wishes to create the following St. Charles Parish Housing Authority PTO policy for executive directors. Do I need to read the entire actual policy again, or?
I knew that was coming up.
I would advise that you probably could do that. I think maybe when reading the memo going forward, you don't have to include, but definitely for the sake of the resolution.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
All right. St. Charles Parish Housing Authority paid time off for executive directors. Policy affects the current incumbent and past St. Charles Parish Housing Authority executive directors to ensure compliance with federal, state, and local law and regulations guiding paid time off, annual and sick leave as part of compensation for executive directors employed by St. Charles Parish Housing Authority. Payroll records. Executive director will complete a weekly payroll report indicating regular hours worked and document any annual sick or holiday leave taken during the course of any given week. These payroll records will be maintained as agency records and available for review as needed by the Board of Commissioners and any entity that wishes to review them for the purpose of audit. Annual leave, January 1st of each new calendar year upon the hire of a new regular interim executive director. The person employed by St. Charles Parish Housing Authority as its executive director will be provided 80 hours of annual leave to use as needed throughout the course of the year. Annual leave is a set number of paid hours or days off that an employee can use for personal reasons such as vacation or rest. It is also known as vacation leave or paid time off, PTO. Any hours of annual leave that were not used during a calendar year are allowed to be paid out to the current executive director at the beginning of the following calendar year. If the executive director resigns or is terminated from employment during a calendar year, affected person is eligible for a payout of any unused leave up to 40 annual leave hours on the payroll check run following their separation from the agency, in addition to any separation compensation as indicated by their employment contract. Sick leave on January 1st of each new calendar year, or upon the hire of a new regular or interim executive director, the person employed by St. Charles Parish Housing Authority as its executive director will be provided 80 hours of sick leave to use as needed throughout the course of the year. Sick leave, also known as paid sick days or sick pay, is a period of time paid off from work to address health needs wherein which the executive director is unable to be called upon due to them addressing a health-related matter. It's different from paid annual leave. Any unused sick leave hours at the end of a calendar year are not eligible for payment to the employed executive director. If the executive director resigns or is terminated for employment during a calendar year, the sick leave of the affected person will reduce to 0 hours, and the affected person is not eligible for a payout of unused sick leave. Overtime and or compensatory time eligibility. Individuals employed as the executive director of St. Charles Parish Housing Authority are not eligible for the overtime or compensatory time. Matters affecting past, current, and future audit monitoring. Understanding the current law governing payroll records for executive directors as exempt employees and any past St. Charles Parish Housing Authority paid time off policies for executive directors, past executive directors, and agency commissioner who receive legal guidance or otherwise from employment law indicating that unused annual leave balances were to be paid out at the end of a calendar year. To address past audit findings or question costs that have occurred as it relates St. Charles Parish Housing Authority paid time off policies for executive directors, St. Charles Parish Housing Authority has written off any currently questioned PTO annual leave payouts for past executive directors hired before January 1st, 2023, who are deceased. Those currently employed by the agency who are now or have been executive directors are eligible for the payout of unused annual leave upon the receipt of payroll records, electronic or in writing, indicating regular hours work and annual leave taken during calendar year 2023-2024. The records will be confirmed by 2 current Board of Commissioners who have financial signatory authority. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the resolution to create a policy entitled St. Charles Parish Housing Authority Paid Time Off Policy for Executive Directors and to provide for all associated and related matters to enact this policy is hereby adopted. The above resolution was read in full. Roll was called on the adoption of same, and the vote was unanimous of all members present. Awesome. Go ahead, Mr. Jackson.
Commissioner J, just for a point of clarity. So with the policy revision and or creation in the memo, you don't necessarily have to read that verbatim, but
Okay.
definitely in the resolution.
All right.
Yes.
Sounds good. All right.
Can I-
So, go ahead.
I was just gonna ask if I can ask a preemptive question on the next motion that we're going into.
Sure.
On page 158, in the background, but the statement just above audit process, is that correct or pertaining?
Well, that's the memo. Is that in the,
And I think it's
that's
somewhere
not,
else too. Well,
I don't think it's in the resolution, but it is in the memo. You're correct. It should read, the resolution will allow for the creation of the following policy governing SCPHA audit engagement policy.
Okay, I thought so, but I didn't wanna.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. So we are on engagement policy. All right. Resolution 2501-2804, approving and adopting St. Charles Parish Housing Authority audit engagement policy. This was to provide an overview of a resolution. You've received a memorandum for creation of the audit engagement policy. This was This does require approval and adoption of the resolution by Board of Commissioners, and it's required for the creation of the audit engagement policy. This is recommended by the staff for the proposed resolution to be approved, and also the St. Charles Parish Housing Authority Finance and Audit Committee meeting on January 15th. We did meet, and Mr. Woods and myself are both audit committee members, and we did review this resolution, and we are recommending it to the board for full approval. Is there any board discussion, comments, or questions regarding Resolution 2501-2804?
Yes.
Mr. Woods.
I have a
Yeah, go
question.
ahead, go ahead, Ms.
Ms. Diggs.
So, do we use the same auditor every year? Audits?
So the board, through a procurement process, selects a independent auditor for a period of time. The current vendor is in year 2 of a 2-year contract. So between now and the end of this year, there will be of course, at the okay of the board, there will be an advertisement let for a new independent auditor.
And the current auditor can
Yes, the current-
submit a proposal.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
and then it would be reviewed and decided upon which auditor we would go with.
Right. And just as it relates to the process, so the the RFP is let out in their specific sections that are scored in specific ways based on the response of the vendor who is submitting a proposal. Those scores then come before the board for selection. The board does not have to select the highest score, but if they don't, they have to provide a justification as it relates to why. But that would be the process.
Just to give her some historical effect, am I correct that our current auditor has been,
You're on. I just want
am I correct, our current auditor has been with us for a number of years now?
From what I've seen, at least the last 5.
Okay, just for your historical thought. Okay.
Is it adequate for me to ask, what's the review from that auditor? Is it good, or are they precise?
So I wouldn't be able to speak, I guess, necessarily on the quality of the review. Auditors are audited by their, I guess, their specific trade organization, so they do go through a review of their reviews. And I'm not necessarily familiar with Mr. Estes' firm and those scores or the past. I will say usually the audits do yield findings or questions based on agency policy and practices. And those findings range from financial to client files to just general administrative practices. So I can send you the past reports that I've seen. There are some that I haven't, but I can definitely get you the ones from the past, just so that you're aware of what some of those questions and or findings were from that audit.
So, some of the resolutions that we're actually enacting this evening are as a direct or even an indirect result of past audit findings to clean up how we do things and to make sure, our I's are dotted and our T's are crossed.
More transparent.
Yes.
All right, any additional, Mr. Woods?
Yes, I do. Guess I'll start with page 159 is where I'm on right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'll start and say some of the things that the board shall do. And the one I'm thinking about right now, it says request the presence of the external auditor from time to time. And I'm kind of thinking just to get engagement, and I know it's almost forced engagement, but to have ongoing engagement of the board and/or the Finance Advisory Committee. I'm gonna hope that a part of this could read that we request the presence of the external auditor at the beginning of the audit process, where he just kind of explains the process, bring the board or any new members just what's going on, and to say maybe what he's looking for and stuff like that. And then at the end of that process, to possibly explain what those findings are, and just again, Finance Audit Committee and or the full board, with the thought of just engaging the board in the process and be totally and completely informed. So I'm hoping we could change that language maybe from a time to time to be specific, so that we know, not just for us, but even going forth in years to come, that will be something that the board will be engaged in.
Are we looking to have a specific point in the process that you want to engage, or do you want to say a mandatory number of times they're engaged?
No. My thought is just initially, after you get the letter of engagement and it's come before the board and say, here's what we process of doing, here's what we're looking for, whatever that presentation would be. And then as we get towards the end of that process, when we actually do have findings or whatever, come back again to the board and just explain what those findings are, and we just get to ask some questions about that.
So, to keep, I guess maybe to keep the language general as it relates to time, but also to add at the beginning also the presence of the external auditor is requested after the engagement letter is provided to the agency. And what was the other?
At the end.
At the end of it, just
Yes,
that you
well-
might just report on whatever findings or whatever.
So
the-
so the board's aware of whatever findings.
Yeah, rather than like
Waiting.
we've been just getting it and that here is this and you just walk away with it. So and my sense is just in the future, it just kind of forces a discussion and an engagement of the board with the auditor.
Okay.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And
Can you, Mr. Jackson, can you read out loud how we're amending that?
Sure. The amendment would read as follows: adding to bullet point number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Also, the presence of the external auditor is requested after the engagement letter is provided to the agency, as well as at the ending of the audit, the culmination of the audit, rather, for a report of findings and questions.
okay, that sounds reasonable.
All right.
And I have
Was
one.
there any objection from the board for this amendment? All right.
And same page, same bullet points. When we talk about upon the receipt of the tabulation of the bids by St. Charles Parish Housing Authority staff, is that any way, is that appropriate or whatever, that if not the full board, but maybe at least one member of the Finance Committee be included in that tabulation process? I know we have procurement policies, and he's a.
I would need to, I'm sorry, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I'm saying, and this is kind of sort of a procurement, but it's the only one of a kind procurement that, how am I gonna put this, generally is a level of responsibility that's definitely is the board's ultimate, which they all are. And I just thought that would be the one special procurement that tabulation process, and again, history is what's kind of guiding my thought pattern here. That would be, and I know external and independent means independent of board and of staff, so it kind of keeps us all on the same page, is what I'm trying to get at.
I need to check with, so a part of the procurement software that we have subscription to does include technical assistance. I would need to check with them to be sure. I think there is there potentially, and I'm not speaking specifically to you or anybody else who may want to do this, but you could have an issue with the person scoring and selecting.
Okay.
Because it's two different, distinct responsibilities in the process. I would need to double check on that for sure,
Okay.
for sure.
My thought process would be that we approve this policy as so far amended this evening. And then if we find that we can better suit it for perceived needs moving forward, that we amend the policy at another meeting.
To address it, that makes sense. You will do
That way we don't hold up the process.
Okay,
We
'cause I
have
was gonna
something in
ask,
place. And
thank you for doing that. Then, okay, that makes sense. So at some point, if you find that that is appropriate, legal, or whatever those things are, and if it's something we can do, then at that time, we'll address that.
And I'll check with our, with the folks with the housing procurement, software that we use. And I think timing wise as well, the board is not in the middle of a, RFP process, so we do have time to figure that out and amend if necessary.
Okay, that makes very good sense.
All right, any additional comments or questions? Mr. Woods?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we accept Resolution 25-01-28-04, a resolution of the St. Charles Parish Housing Authority Board of Commissioners approving and adopting a resolution for the creation of a St. Charles Parish Housing Authority audit engagement policy with the amendments or adjustments stated.
By Mr. Jackson?
Yes, correct.
Okay. All right, thank you, Mr. Woods. Mr. Woods has moved to approve the Resolution 25-01-28-04 as amended and stated for the record, and that is seconded by Commissioner Bailey. Please cast your votes. All right, that passes unanimously by all members present this evening. Resolution 25-01-28-04, a resolution of St. Charles Parish Housing Authority Board of Commissioners approving and adopting a resolution for the creation of a St. Charles Parish Housing Audit Engagement Policy. The undersigned, being the duly elected Secretary of St. Charles Parish Housing Authority, hereby certifies that by written consent the following resolution was duly adopted. Whereas the St. Charles Parish Housing Authority is a public housing agency established pursuant to Louisiana law, and whereas the mission of the authority is to promote adequate and affordable housing, economic opportunity, and a suitable living environment free from discrimination, and whereas the authority, as dictated by federal, state, and local laws and regulations, must revise its various policies and procedures to ensure compliance and efficiency of process, and whereas the need arises for the agency to create a policy entitled St. Charles Parish Housing Authority Audit Engagement Policy, and whereas the authority and its Board of Commissioners wishes to create the following St. Charles Parish Housing Authority Audit Engagement Policy, the Executive Director shall facilitate the request for proposals, process solicitation to receive proposals from qualified auditing firms. At the direction of the Board of Commissioners, finalize an agreement with the selected vendor for external auditing services, coordinate the rollout of the annual external audit process with the external auditor per the terms of the letter of engagement provided by the external auditor, inform the Board of Commissioners when the engagement letter is received, and keep the Board of Commissioners informed in regard to the audit process, especially indicating progress as well as potential concerns and issues as in advance as possible. Work with St. Charles Parish Housing Authority staff to prepare and provide the external auditor with information that is requested. Ensure that there are no unethical or illegal actions undertaken during the audit process which could affect the audit process of being fair and unbiased, If the executive director becomes aware of any potential unethical or illegal actions, the executive director will report their concerns to the St. Charles Parish Housing Authority Board of Commissioners, Finance and Audit Committee at their earliest convenience. Ensure that the external auditor instructions and requests are clear to ensure that the information that the agency provides is free from errors, omissions, or misstatements. Maintain constant communication with the Board of Commissioners on matters regarding the external audit. Request that any formal communication from external auditors include a copy to the members of the Finance and Audit Committee of the Board of Commissioners. The Board of Commissioners shall authorize the solicitation of bids for prospective vendors to provide external auditor services to St. Charles Parish Housing Authority. Upon the receipt of the tabulation of the bids by St. Charles Parish Housing Authority staff, the Board of Commissioners shall select the external auditor and direct the executive director to execute a contract with the selected vendor. Direct the executive director to work with the external auditor to provide requested information in a timely and complete manner. Authorize the Finance and Audit Committee of the Board of Commissioners to call for the committee meetings as needed to discuss any ongoing audit processes with the executive director. Request the presence of an external auditor from time to time at a committee or meeting of the full board to discuss audit reports. Also, the presence of the external auditor is requested after the engagement letter is provided to the agency, as well as at the culmination of the audit for a report of findings and questions. Where are we? Address and report to the relevant body of any reported ethics or legal issues with the audit process as reported by the executive director, commissioner, or St. Charles Parish Housing staff member. I think I can get it from here. Let's see. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the resolution to create a policy entitled St. Charles Parish Housing Authority Audit Engagement Policy is hereby adopted.
Yay.
Let's see.
Good deal. Thank you.
And the above resolution was read in full. Roll was called on adoption of same, and the vote was unanimous of all members present in the affirmative. Okay. 2 more to go.
2.
That's just one.
There's one more.
Huh?
2.
2, yeah.
The PHA plan revision and the acceptance of the bid for the old trucks.
Oh, what was that?
All right, next resolution before us this evening is 2501.
I'm sorry, Commissioner, you don't have that in the packet?
I don't think I do. The last one I see is the revised.
Oh,
plan.
gosh.
Is
Okay.
anything with the trucks?
Notice.
That must have been left out by I'm
I
sorry.
read it somewhere. Oh, it wasn't in this packet.
I think it may have been in the previous
I think it was
packet.
in the email, maybe.
It was.
Yeah.
It was. I apologize for that.
Yeah, I thought.
Don't know
I read
why
it
that
too.
didn't carry over. Sorry about that.
We'll make it work. We're gonna get these guys these trucks tonight.
I have the
We're gonna get these guys these trucks
I have the
tonight.
resolution
Okay.
and everything. So
I know I saw it in the email, so I
Yeah.
know it was provided to us.
Yeah, I saw it too and read it, but I didn't realize.
Okay, it's just not in the paper copy. All right, so we'll do resolution 2501-2805. It's a request to re-advertise the St. Charles Parish Housing Authority PHA annual 5-year plan revision. So we do have a memorandum that all the commissioners have received, and this is for the federal regulations. We must create and revise annual and 5-year plans to clearly communicate operational goals and objectives for the short and long term. And anytime there's a material change to those operational goals and objectives, the PHA must revise its annual and 5-year plans. And due to the change of having to pivot from the streamlined voluntary conversion, which was included in our original 2024-2025 annual 5-year plan, the Housing Authority must revise our plan to indicate the RAD Section 18 repositioning strategy. So that's what this resolution is about. This resolution would allow for the authority to revise and advertise its plan for a statutorily required 45-day period, culminating in a public hearing subsequent review and consideration by the board of the revised plan for submission to HUD. Action is required on this resolution, approval and adoption of this resolution by the Board of Commissioners, and public hearing for and consideration of the revised plan. The staff recommends board approval and adoption of this resolution as well. Did we have any? That wasn't part of committee meeting. So the staff recommends it. I do know that it was discussed in committee as well. So any discussion?
To this plan, any significant, revisions? What's, I know we're changing what we're doing, so what are we gonna?
So the initial plan that was approved by HUD included the SVC language specifically. We received advisement from HUD to make the language, because with a repositioning strategy, it has to be included in your PHA plan. So we did receive guidance from HUD to make the language general in nature, to avoid any issues of maybe having to go back to revise it again. Unfortunately, we just received, and that was actually something that the board approved at our December meeting. We actually started already advertising the revised plan. Unfortunately, with guidance received in the last few weeks, we're going to have to pull that advertisement and begin the process all over again via this resolution, because we've been told we need to specifically state RAD Section 18 blend as our repositioning strategy in the plan document. And when the plan document is advertised, there's a hard copy available to the public at the office, as well as a copy online on our website, which also includes the notice for the advertisement of the plan, as well as the public hearing that will occur before our March board meeting.
And will you let us know when that's available online?
Absolutely.
We'll just go and, don't really need hard copies, but when it's.
Absolutely. And it's really and truly just going through and pulling out the part that says SVC or now that said a general repositioning strategy, and including specifically RAD Section 18 plan. Right.
Gotcha. All right. Thank you, sir.
All right. Anyone else wishing to speak?
No.
All right. Commissioner Bailey.
Commissioner Webb, I'd like to pass a motion that we approve the resolution 2501-2805 request to re-advertise the St. Charles Parish Housing Authority PHA annual 5-year plan revision.
All right, Commissioner Bailey's move to approve Resolution 2501-2805 to re-advertise St. Charles Parish Housing Authority PHA annual 5-year plan revision. That's been seconded by Ms. Diggs. Please cast your votes. All right, and that was voted in the affirmative by all members present. Resolution 2501-2805.
I'm sorry.
That's this one, right?
This is for the next one.
Okay. Resolution 2501-2805, resolution of St. Charles Parish Housing Authority Board of Commissioners approving and adopting resolution for the advertisement of a revised 2024-2025 annual 5-year plan. The undersigned, being the duly elected Secretary of St. Charles Parish Housing Authority, hereby certifies that by written consent, following resolution was duly adopted. Whereas St. Charles Parish Housing Authority is a public housing agency established pursuant to Louisiana law, and whereas the mission of the authority is to promote adequate and affordable housing, economic opportunity, and a suitable living environment free from discrimination, and whereas the authority, as dictated by HUD federal regulations, must create and revise its annual and 5-year plans to clearly communicate its operational goals and objectives for the short and long term, and whereas when there is a material change to those operational goals and objectives, PHA must revise its annual and 5-year plans, and due to the change from the Streamlined Voluntary Conversion, SVC, which was included in its original 2024-2025 annual 5-year plan, St. Charles Parish Housing Authority must now revise its plan to indicate that the RAD Section 18 repositioning strategy is how St. Charles Parish Housing Authority chooses to proceed, and whereas the authority and its Board of Commissioners wishes to revise and advertise its 2024-2025 annual 5-year PHA plan and allow for a public hearing on the revision of the plan and consideration by the Board of Commissioners to allow for submission to HUD and to ensure compliance with HUD regulations, now therefore be it resolved that the resolution to revise and advertise a revision to its 2024-2025 annual 5-year PHA plan and to allow for all related matters on the revision of the plan is hereby adopted. The above resolution was read in full, roll was called on adoption of same, and the vote was as follows. It was in the affirmative by all members present. All right. Mr. Jackson, you just want to give us the overview of Resolution 2501-2806?
Yes, sir. So the purpose of this resolution is to approve and adopt a resolution for the sale of SCPHA equipment, St. Charles Parish Housing Authority equipment vehicles. The authority and its Board of Commissioners currently has 2 work trucks that are currently outside of their useful life and wishes to dispose of the vehicles and receive the proceeds of which will be used to defray some of the costs of their replacement. The authority's Board of Commissioners, in line with its asset disposition policy, led an advertisement to solicit bids to purchase the trucks, which ran from December the 2nd, 2024 through December the 18th, 2024. There was one respondent, and that respondent was, sorry, 1 second. Okay, yes, there was one respondent, Southern Belt Autos, SBA, and that was for a submitted bid of $225 on the 2013 GMC Sierra truck, last date of the VIN DZ312978, and a bid of $125 on 2013 GMC Sierra truck, last date of the VIN DZ298817. And the resolution is required rather by the authority to dispose of the vehicles, as well as staff recommending approval and adoption by way of the attached resolution.
Any board discussion regarding this resolution? Mr. Woods.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve Resolution 2501-2806, approving and adopting a resolution for the acceptance of a bid to sell St. Charles Parish Housing Authority equipment vehicles.
Mr. Woods has moved to approve Resolution 2501-2806, approving and adopting resolution for the acceptance of a bid to sell St. Charles Parish Housing Authority equipment vehicles. That's been seconded by Commissioner Bailey. Please cast your vote. All right, that passes in the affirmative by all members present this evening. Commissioner Bailey, do you happen to have that resolution in your computer?
I probably have it in my computer. I don't have it. Well, I don't have a packet.
Okay. I just was going to ask if you could read it if I hand you this one. Just thought you might have the electronic copy of it.
This is completely different. All right. So, Resolution 25-01-28-06, a resolution of the St. Charles Parish Housing Authority Board of Commissioners approving and adopting a resolution for the acceptance of a bid to sell St. Charles Parish Housing equipment vehicles. The undersigned, being the duly elected Secretary of the St. Charles Parish Housing Authority, hereby certifies that by written consent the following resolution was duly adopted. Whereas the St. Charles Parish Housing Authority is a public housing agency established pursuant to Louisiana law, whereas the mission of the authority is to promote adequate and affordable housing, economic opportunity, and a suitable living environment free from discrimination, and whereas the authority, per its deposition of asset policy, must from time to time let and advertise to select qualified responsive vendors to provide fair market value for the items that the agency wishes to dispose of. Whereas the authority, in line with the deposition of the asset policy, authorize the executive director or their designee to let and advertise and let an advertisement to allow the Board of Commissioners to select a qualified and responsive vendor to provide a fair market value for the authorities to 2013 GMC Sierra 1500's last 8 of the VIN number is DZ298817 with 123,016 miles, and DZ312978 was 113,358 miles. And whereas the advertisement for the deposition of the vehicles ran through December 2nd, 2024 through December 18th, 2024. Whereas at the close of the advertisement period, one vendor, Southern Belt Autos, SBA, was the lone respondent and submitted a bid for $225 on the 2013 GC Sierra truck. Last 8 of the VIN number is DZ312978, and a bid for $125 on the 2013 GMC Sierra truck. Last of the 8 VIN number DZ298817. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the proposed resolution authorize the sale of the St. Charles Parish Housings to 2013 GMC Sierra 1500. Last 8 VIN number is DZ29817 for $125 with 123,016 miles on it, and DZ312978 for $225, 113,358 miles to Southern Belt Autos, the SBA, to Southern Belt Autos SBA, hereby approved and adopted for implementation.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Bailey. So the above resolution was read in full, roll was called, and it was approved by a vote of all members present in the affirmative.
All right.
Do we need to go into executive session this evening?
Yes.
Okay. All right, do we have a motion from the board?
Mr. Chair, I
Woods.
move,
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I move that we enter into executive session.
A second.
All right, Mr. Woods has moved to go into executive session. That's seconded by Commissioner Bailey. Please cast your votes. All right, that passes. The time is now 7:46. At this time, we'll move into executive session. All right, do we have a motion to resume our regular session? Commissioner Bailey.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'd like to pass a motion that we pass back and we enter out of executive session we exit executive session, enter back into our regular meeting.
All right, Commissioner
Second.
Bailey has moved to resume our regular meeting from executive session, and that's seconded by Commissioner Woods. You may cast your vote. All right, that passes. The time is now 8:22, and we are resuming our regular meeting. All right, are there any other matters before us this evening? Any commissioners wish to speak on any matters?
No.
All right. This time we will now open for public comment. Seeing no one in the chambers, we'll close public comment. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Mr. Chair, I move that we adjourn our regular meeting.
Commissioner Woods has moved to adjourn. That's seconded by Commissioner Bailey. Please cast your vote. All right, that passes unanimously. The time is 8:23. We are adjourned. Thank y'all.
Right, thank you.